So we're going to start this video, and then we're going to start the presentation.
The neo-Nazi group National Socialist Movement attacked Pride in Detroit.
Escorted in by the police, the fascists tore up Pride flags, yelled racial slurs at black people, and physically intimidated a number of Pride attendees. Acts of vandalism, intimidations, and protests have already happened elsewhere.
Similar right-wing demonstrations are getting planned in Seattle, D.C., and Portland. The same group of people who attended Unite the Right
Are taking their hate on a nationwide tour. This is the street movement of the Trump agenda. We have to shut them down wherever they go.
Proud Boys and other members of the alt-right are rallying in D.C. on July 6th, 12 p.m. at Freedom Plaza.
Speakers include Laura Loomer, a banned Twitter personality notorious for promoting Islamophobia,
Mike Cernovich, who speaks openly in favor of date rape,
Milo Yiannopoulos, who harassed trans women at American University,
and saying America the Beautiful in front of neo-Nazi Richard Spencer.
Gavin McInnes, founder of the Proud Boys,
Proud Boys chairman Enrique Tarria,
Jack Posobiec, who created the Pizzagate conspiracy.
Roger Stone, who helped steal an election.
We expect this to be one of the largest far-right events since Unite the Right, and possibly one of the largest far-right rallies in DC since 2002.
We cannot allow these violent fascists to prevent us from standing up to state violence, murderous police, ICE, and the rise of authoritarianism.
Together, we can shut down the alt-right and put an end to borders, prisons, and Trump's white supremacist vision once and for all.
All out DC.
All out Portland,
All out Seattle.
July 6th, 10 a.m., Pershing Park.
So, hi everyone. My name is Dylan Pedro-Hillos. I use he, him pronouns. They is also fine. And I'm excited that you all are here today. Thank you for coming. Yeah.
My name is Michael. I live in a collective that's centered on intersectional anarchism, centered in trans, queer, and gender nonconforming liberation. I use they, them pronouns. I'm trans womanx. Thank you for coming here today. We are here to do a presentation about many questions that people are asking what is happening on July 6th. We will be answering some questions later on, but for the moment we will be doing a lot of representations about what is leading up to July 6th.
So, who's All Out DC? All Out DC is a DC-based collective of longtime activists, anti-fascists, anarchists, and abolitionists.
We do not work with law enforcement.
We believe that can be liberation for some without the liberation for all.
Only united communities can put an end to white supremacy, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, misogyny, homophobia, transphobia, and capitalism.
So what the fascists are actually saying for? Fascists are weaponizing free speech to promote hate against marginalized communities.
This so-called free speech rally is nothing more than an excuse for alt-right to terrorize the District of Columbia through harassment, intimidation, and assault of all while under the protection of DC Metro Police, Park Police, and the Secret Service.
So, Unite the Right in Charlottesville, where we lost Heather Heyer, also was billed as a free speech rally. So, what they say they're here for is that they're, quote, our rights are guaranteed under the Constitution are being systematically violated, unquote. We know that this is not true. So, who's coming to DC?
Proud Boys, 44 plus alt-right speakers, local Identity Europa members, of Oath Keepers, 3%ers, and Bikers for Trump. We anticipated that the ultra-nationalists will join Trump's celebration on 4th of July, while we will be staying around to participate on July 6th event.
So one of the speakers for July 6th is Roger Stone. He's currently under investigation for election fraud. He's a self-described inventor of Western chauvinism He's a member of the Proud Boys. He's also done pretty notorious stuff, like prevented the Ramapo Lenape people from getting federal recognition as a tribe. He actually teamed up with Trump to do that, to make sure that indigenous people did not have sovereignty, so Trump could build essentially a casino. Laura Loomer, a former social media provocateur, because she lost access to her Twitter account. Laura Loomer gave a speech to a crowd of anti-Sharia law marchers in New York City and condemned liberals who align themselves with Sharia law. Loomer put a burqa on the Fearless Girl statue adjacent to the Merrill Lynch building. On January 30th, Loomer and others jumped the wall surrounding California Governor's Mansion in Sacramento, California. They said to protest Governor Gavin Newsom's stance on immigration. They wore Mexican cerezas and sombreros, with one wearing a large fake mustache.
Milo Diapolis, he is a gay man who hates the gay rights movement, a libertarian who calls an authoritarian president daddy, a vigorous opponent of Black Lives Matter, who says that he can't be racist because, quote, I just like fucking black.
So, Gavin McInnes is the founder of the Proud Boys. Where he goes, violence goes. So these are some of the quotes that Gavin has said over time. As you can see, that they are incredibly racist and incredibly violent. Particularly, violence doesn't just feel good, justified violence feels great. And fighting solves everything.
McGinnis had described himself as an Archie Bucher sexist and had said that 95% of women would be happier at home. In a speech, he described a clash with anti-fascists outside a talk that he gave in NYU last year. Quote, "My guys are left to fight, and and here the crucial parts we do, and we beat the crap out of them."
Enrique Tarrio, who identifies as Afro-Cuban, is president of the Miami chapter of the Proud Boys, who call themselves Western chauvinists again, and regularly spout white nationalist memes and maintain affiliation with known extremists. According to the Southern Poverty Law Center, Enrique has, quote, said about hip-hop culture, it glorifies that lifestyle of selling drugs, shooting up, because that, obviously you're going to have higher crime rates, obviously you're going to have more police presence and more confrontations, right? This is Jack Posobiec, who's one of the speakers of the rally. For those that don't know what the Pizzagate conspiracy is, it led to a shooting at Comet Ping Pong. Someone traveled miles because of Jack Posobiec, who's on the right. Left is, of course, Richard Spencer, who is maybe most famous for getting punched in the face. Also famous for the Hail Trump, Hail Victory quote as well. The Pizzagate conspiracy, for those who don't know what actually Comet Ping Pong is, Comet Ping Pong hosts punk shows. I've been there many times to see punk bands. If you also grew up in the DC area, your parents probably brought you there to eat fairly okay pizza with your family. Here's Jack Posobiec with the Clark brothers. The Clark brothers are infamous in their connection to the Tree of Life shooter who shot up the synagogue in Pittsburgh. One of the Clark brothers committed suicide after that shooting. Another one ended up in federal prison. The Pizzagate conspiracy started because of Jack Posobiec, which again, had a gunman come from North Carolina. So consistently, these speakers promote violence and run away from the consequences. Okay. Jack Posobiec besides being terrible and should never come to DC, was an organizer of the Lucha Floorball, which then had, which was to celebrate Trump's inauguration. He also doxed people that came forward in the Roy Moore Senate race. Yeah, so the survivors that Roy Moore he did terrible things against them. The other one is Mike Cernovich.
Mike Cernovich. It's a Pizzagate and alt-right organizer. Quote, not being a slut is the only proved way to avoid AIDS. And if you love black women, slut shame them. Quote. I want to reiterate that many of the people that are coming into this rally are actively attacking black and brown and indigenous, particularly femme, queer, women, and gender non-conforming and trans folks. Mike Cernovich is in May 2017, he joined forces with popular conspiracy theorist Alex Jones to co-host a show in InfoWars, moving even deeper into the world of conspiracy theory. Quote, I went from libertarian to alt-right after realizing tolerance only went one way, and diversity's code for white genocide.
One second, we're having a little bit of technical difficulties here, so let me make sure that's working. All right, so Joey Salads, if we had visuals, which I don't understand why we don't, much of Joey Salad's online fame comes from a series of racist hood pranks, quote unquote. In these videos, black people on the street are often presented as disproportionately emotional, aggressive, attacking Salads for no reason. He went to a white neighborhood with a Black Lives Matter sign where nothing happened, and then he presented the next vision as an all lives matter sign in a black neighborhood. And passerbyers accost him immediately, and then he quote unquote said, as you can see, black people get really emotional, Salad said in the video. He's also known for wearing a neo-Nazi uniform and claiming that it was a joke. You know, I don't know why anyone would rep neo-Nazis, wear a neo-Nazi uniform, except to promote fascism.
So why are we here today? We are DC and we are unified. Together we will kick Nazis out of our town. I want to reiterate the importance about the mobilization for July 6th because they are mobilizing again the following month. This is about trying to stop the direct violence directed to black and brown and indigenous people, particularly already disproportionately marginalized by the system. Black and brown and indigenous people, queer, trans, intersex, gender nonconforming, and two-spirited folks should not be the target just in case, just for the purpose of uplifting Western chauvinism motivated by colonial and white supremacy. So why we're mobilizing? We're mobilizing to chase these moral, bankrupt, and violent street fighters from organizing and recruiting disenfranchised folks into building their movement, hence tokenization. We will bring transformative justice and liberation for all within our current political situation.
Never again is right now. And we must not hesitate to protect all of our futures. We see kids in cages up and down the Southwest, people being forced to drink from toilets, inhumane conditions that no one should have to live in. So,
what do we expect on July 6th? We expect people to show up and show down. At 10 p.m., we will shut down the hate. A rally is going to happen in Riverside and Freedom Plaza, and we will be stationed at Pershing Square Park, where we held our own rallies and speeches, uplifting the voices of the marginalized community in DC and around the community. In 11:30 and 2:30, hip-hop and go-go music, facilitated by Black Lives Matter DC, will take place to uplift the black and brown and indigenous experience to musical joy. And at 6 p.m., we will have the Block the Outright action.
So you can support us by going to alloutdc.org and finding out information there. We have tons of information about the mobilization. You can go to Cash App at DC Alerta if you want to send us some cash. You could also go to the website and donate there. Come to the action camp on July 5th and support the work of local DC organizers. Again, the information is there on the website. Yeah, and that's what we got as a presentation for y'all. So now we'll open it up. We'll bring up Carlo, our friend.
So I'm gonna have a conversation with a fellow person of color and the importance about mobilization to this thing. Would you mind introducing yourself to everyone?
Hi everyone, my name is Carlo Chavadia. I use he, him pronouns. That is also okay. Good microphone. So, hi again, Carlo. I've been present in the DC activist scene for almost 8 years now. Originally from New York, and came here for college and been involved in DC direct action with anti-fascists and Black Solidarity organizing, and Latinx and immigrant solidarity organizing ever since. I'm currently helping All Out DC on a number of parts, including community outreach, media stuff like this, and I'm here to answer any questions you have about why our community needs to get together. We need to be directly involved as we progress to this Saturday.
Carlo, if there's any question I'd like to ask you, why, for particularly a person who have less labor to provide, it's important for you as a person of color to represent yourself in the front lines?
Because me and many people like me are the ones who will be targeted by the alt-right. I'm an outspoken Black and Latino man who has been involved in direct action and wants the alt-right to know that they have no place in DC. The alt-right has a history of targeting people like that whenever they choose to speak their mind. And I want to show them that me, my friends, and other Black, Brown, Latinx, queer organizers will be present to stop.
I also want to thank you for you being here today, and any person of color, Black, Brown, and Indigenous here today. I know that during the duration when Trump's election, there's a lot of deflection against marginalized community, whether they're DACA recipient, whether they're trans community, whether they're Black community, whether they're Native community. What do you think the implication of having free speech rallies provoked by white supremacists, and how do you think that affects our community in future Vermont?
Rallies like this make white supremacists feel alone. The constant rise of actions and rallies like these give them the belief that their platform is valid, that hate speech is in fact the same thing as free speech, and let their actions, violence, intimidation, and just looking to provoke as somehow okay, as equivalent to someone saying Black Lives Matter. That's just emphatically not true. And the fact that we are in a state of time where people can say that saying Black Lives Matter and all lives matter are the same thing is not something we should take silently.
Do you think at this moment, at this time, we feel safe in the hands of highly heightened, racist, bigoted president and its followers?
Good question. Short answer is no.
And why?
Well, all the ready people who look like me or even darker than me or different backgrounds don't feel safe walking the streets. And this was even before the 2016 election. I could walk down the street wearing a three-piece suit and a cop would still feel the right to pull me aside because I'm not in the right neighborhood. 3 years later, after Trump's election, there are now people in the neighborhood watch who feel like they have the same authority as those police.
I also want to reiterate, as a trans woman, it is very dangerous for trans people to walk around the streets. Because what people think that as an isolated word, phrase that they use in their speeches, really do trickle down to community and is being used as a margin to attack marginalized community. So I think that's one of the issues that I think both of us relate, regardless where we come from as Filipino and Latino, Afro-Latino. When they think about targeting marginalized people, community, they don't discriminate simply because they see us as another mechanism of blaming us for what they consider what doesn't make America great again.
Kind of just to piggyback on that, DC as a city of just organizing culture is very much led by Black, brown, trans, queer femmes in the movement. A lot of them are the ones who have been in the face of public speaking events like this, who have been out in the communities getting people directly involved with budding organizations, and have been the ones who have to put in a lot of labor and answer the hard questions. Like you were saying earlier, those are the people who are more than likely going to be targeted by the Proud Boys when they're present during the 4th of July weekend. Because they're vulnerable, because they make themselves public, knowing the risk of that, and they continue to feel like they make themselves acceptable targets.
What do you think is the most important things we need to do leading up, not only in July 6th, but moving forward, particularly the re-election of possibly Trump?
First part is to not forget about momentum like this. It's actions like these and conversations like these that keep Trump and his cronies pushing back. We're the ones, and others throughout the U.S. are the ones who are being active in the movement and facilitating the conversation of what direct action looks like. That's going to be the most front-facing strategy leading up to the 2020 election, showing the rest of the world who is being outspoken, who is being active, and who's being the most direct in both being targeted by this type of hate speech and who's fighting back against it.
I also want to reiterate, I think that there's a concept that like after this July 6th, that somehow we go back to normal life. That's not the case. I think that the transient of phrases and words that they project into these spaces is that it culminates violence. We as leftist people and abolitionist people or marginalized people that are by birth have to fight against white supremacy, by birth have to fight the system, have to use community defense, resistance as a platform to fight against a system that told that we are not part of this society. This is the reality for many Black and brown and indigenous people who are queer, who are trans, who are two-spirited, and actively have to deal with this situation even after 6. I always say, white people has a position of privilege to rally during the action. But the reality comes to term is that when the signs are lowered down, when the banners comes down, the Black flags disappear. The reality is when a Black woman walks out of that rally, a trans Black woman walks out of the rally, a Native person who's from different nation are going to deal with the consequences of 500 years of hate of white supremacy and a narrative that's provoked by American plantation. So what we are asking as people who are dedicated to put on the labor is that we ask you to show up on July 6th and support marginalized community. Show up and show down, not only in words, but also in action. Because there is safetiness coming into the rally, but the violence takes place after the rally. These fascists does not stay within their parameter, and we still have to deal with the consequences of them wandering off in the next 3 days from 4th of July to 6th, and during possibly 2020 during the elections. And we need to invest on a lot of community support to create a community defense to fight against hate. Thank you, Clark.
Thank you, Michael.
I am now opening time here for questions for the event.
Yeah, this is the time for questions for organizers and whatnot. The other thing that we want to announce is that the Spy Museum actually has officially dropped the event. So go on for getting the Spy Museum to shut down their violent fascists that are coming into town. So with that, we'd like to open it up to questions. Yes.
On your little calendar of July 6th, you kind of detailed those first two things, the Pershing Park protest and a thing at 2:30, and then at 6 p.m. you had an item that wasn't expanded upon as much. Can you describe what you meant by block the alt-right at 6 p.m.?
Well, as Dylan just mentioned, the alt-right is having an event, their so-called VIP event, after their rally at Freedom Plaza. Folks might want to go and resist this event, wherever it may be, and we're hoping that folks resist in any way they feel they should.
What are their chances of getting another venue after what just happened at the Spy Museum?
Well, we're hoping they don't get another venue, and they can stay home and don't come to DC. Any other questions?
Any intel on the numbers?
So Enrique Tarrio, in a interview with Laura Loomer and on Laura Loomer's website, has promised 100 plus Proud Boys they promised 100 plus Proud Boys to do security. Of course, with almost 50 people that are speaking, they said up to 1,000 in their permits, according to the Daily Caller, or according to the Daily Beast. Sorry. So the Daily Beast is much better than the Daily Caller. I want to throw that out there. And so we don't know what it actually is, but we do know minimally that this is what they publicly promised. So and this could be like the video mentioned at the beginning of this event, this could be one of the largest far-right events since 2002 in DC, where fascists openly marched in the city at one point.
Did you say that there was a permit given for up to 1,000 people?
Yes.
And that's at the Freedom Plaza
Yes.
location?
They also have mobilized a lot of folks in DC before. They're going to potentially mobilize in September. The Mother of All Rallies is also happening again this year. Last year they turned out about 500 people, so this is something that has happened before. This year they're expecting to turn out almost 1,000, even more.
And again, part of that is the ultra-nationalist event that Trump is celebrating on the 4th of July, as well as the Christian United for Israel conference. So this weekend isn't just the July 6th event, but rather a weekend of ultra-nationalists converging on our city, which is unfortunate, right? DC's chocolate city, and it's going to be unsafe for a majority of the residents downtown.
I just wanted to, I'm sorry, I'm going to leave after this, but I just wanted to say to everybody that we're all here together. We know that we're going to have many visitors here in town this weekend, starting on Thursday. And what I would say is, that in the neighborhoods and where you live, please be on the lookout for just crowds of white boys. Just be on the lookout for crowds of white boys. Please watch crowds of white boys in the neighborhoods, like this neighborhood, because there will be a lot of kind of street talking and microaggressions that could lead to more hostile incidents with people who would be unsuspecting. And of course, they're going to go after the most vulnerable. And so please talk to your networks and tell them to be on watch. Obviously, you know, the big event is the big event, right? But what I'm just as concerned with is what's going to happen within the neighborhoods themselves. And if you happen to live in Southeast and in Northeast, the thought of unsuspecting neighbors and community members being accosted by a group of these white boys, please just be on the lookout. I appreciate that. Thank you.
I believe you had a question?
Yeah, I just want to clarify some logistical stuff. So their rally starts at 10 in Freedom Plaza, but we're meeting at Pershing Park.
So we're meeting at Pershing Park at 10 a.m. Their rally starts 11 a.m. So we're meeting an hour beforehand.
Okay, so is there going to be a meeting to discuss sort of the plan? I don't know. Are we just, I don't know. Do we have a plan for how we're going to approach the rally and people? Do we? I don't know. I went to a Ben Shapiro. I was outside of a Ben Shapiro talk once, and things were really disorganized and kind of scary. And we didn't really have a plan, so I'm just sort of wondering, do you have any advice?
So we encourage anyone from the DC area or coming in out of town for our event on July 6th to the All Out DC event to come to the action camp on July 5th. The action camp is from 4 to 9 p.m. Make sure you sign up on our Facebook page at All Out DC. And make sure you fill out the form on the event page as well. We'd love to see you there. We'd love to get you plugged into the event.
So yes, that would be the time to get organized.
The night before.
Yes.
Okay.
And there's plenty of stuff to do, and we have plenty of roles to fill.
Any other questions?
Can you expand on the theme of why you sort of don't trust the police to protect the community and sort of what you see your role as in the context of community defense?
I'm going to let someone who's not white answer this.
Sure.
So historically, and I think this is really giving a lot more historical significance to Black community, police are created infrastructurally as catching Black people who are running away from plantations. That is the basis of the police. Police are essentially created to protect white supremacy and American experience that's built on whiteness and white supremacy and colonialism. If we move forward 21st century, nothing has changed. So their loyalty is literally just putting a muscle to protect the investors of the American dream. Hence the Make America Great Again. The reason why we do not think that the police is to be trustworthy is because their actions as an institution historically had supported white supremacy. And in this particular event, we expect them to make platform and protect their actions of any violence that they do. Grant what people are gonna say to me, that there are police out there that does their job correctly. But we cannot use police, the action of one cop, to predetermine the historical context on what police have played in many communities. From Black communities to brown community, indigenous community. This is why we still have mass incarceration and the issue with ICE, with the issue with DHS, with the issue with prison industrial complex, because there is a lot of investment on high policing to manage communities of color that are often disproportionately marginalized. So how is that relatable to July 6th? July 6th is an antithesis of white supremacy in the heights of Western white chauvinism. And their loyalty is to maintain that narrative, and they're providing service by protecting them. Grant, they also filed for First Amendment right permit. So they allegedly have the right to be there. So the cops' job is to provide service to protect them. If that's including trying to throw the rest of the counter protests under the bus.
Yes?
Mentioning your First Amendment claim, doesn't the First Amendment bind only arms of government and nobody else, starting towards Congress will make no law?
We believe that it is not up to the government to enforce or any type of enforce any type of speech laws. We believe that it's up to the community to protect themselves against hate speech, and that's what we've been doing, and that's what we will continue to do.
I'm a former J20 defendant. Many of the folks that are organizing are former J20 defendants. We've actually had state repression in our lives, and there's actual communities that are consistently facing state repression. The demand free speech rally is kind of absurd and hilarious, given the political context of Washington, D.C., where there has been actual crackdowns on dissent by the state, right? They're not getting cracked down on by the state. They're getting communities saying, no, you can't advocate for a peaceful ethnic cleansing, which there's no such thing as a peaceful ethnic cleansing, right? ICE is an inherently violent institution, and it inherently is removing millions upon millions of people, which is an ethnic cleansing. Any other, back there?
If we came to the workshop the day before, can we expect, like the night before, an email or Facebook, some sort of update with some specifics? Or do you think this is probably the most specific we'll get as far as what happens at 10 a.m. What's it going to look like?
We encourage folks to come to the action camp on July 5th. We'll be posting some updates close to the event, but we definitely do encourage you to come to the action camp on July 5th to get plugged in. That's going to be the best way to get information, and that's just the best way to get plugged in. But to go back to what Dylan was saying. Talking about repression, 6 Twitter accounts were taken down that were anti-fascist Twitter accounts that have been used to spread the news about ICE raids, about police violence, about alt-right violence all around the country. And so when they're talking about themselves being repressed, it's us being repressed too. The All Out DC Twitter account was taken down. Why hasn't that been put back up? Why hasn't the other 5 accounts been put back up? That's because we're being repressed, not them.
All right, if there's no other questions, I believe this is it. We lose the space in 10 minutes. One more question.
I was just wondering, A, if you are for some reason late to Pershing Park, is there an alternative location? Or is it just meeting at Pershing Park?
Meet at Pershing Park and follow the Twitter account and Instagram accounts. This will be your best way to find information.
Okay. The only other question was dance party. Is that happening still? Or?
Yes.
Good. Okay.
Yeah. For the record, most of the day will be a giant, fun dance party in some way, shape, or form. So come out and have fun. Yeah. We have one more question back there.
Could you please explain the strategy for community outreach and who is the be there? Yeah.
So we've invited lots of people from the community. We have over 20 signers of the mobilization, including Black Lives Matter DC, obviously our own collective, All Out DC. It's a diverse group of, Sanctuary BNB recently signed on, La Colectiva has recently signed on, and there's a dozen plus other organizations that are mobilizing for this.
So the people that have endorsed it and they saw it on the Facebook page, but do you expect that they will show up or is it?
Yeah, lots of those groups are showing up in that mobilization and speaking.
That's going to end the question portion. We thank you so much for coming out. Remember, on July 5th, if you can make it, come to the action camp. It starts at 4 p.m. The event link is on our Facebook page, All Out DC. You can also follow us on Twitter at DC Defend. Thanks.
Thank you.